In a world full of misery, rage, and insomnia, there's a place you can go to just unwind. All you have to do is take a long walk into the mountains, and just past the black house, the secret garden, you'll find a small cabin. Inside that cabin, you'll find the Hole in the Wall Book Club. So now that the dream catcher's hung and the fire started, we invite you to pull up a chair and join the Losers Club as we explore the world of officious little pricks and shining on. Okay, how do we start this? On the cover. Hello, welcome to Hole in the Wall Book Club, the podcast where I still don't remember how this goes. The last one was so good, though. Go back and listen to the beginning of the last one, and then like jump forward and pretend like we did it again. I'm Icy,
and I'm Mark. I'm still working on that good internet name. You know,
right.
It's at least more than one syllable and sounds unique, but we're not there yet.
Well, like at this point, I realized that so few people in my life actually call me by like my meat space name. Like it's my family and like 3 friends.
Yeah.
Okay. I guess today we are talking about The Shining.
I was thinking that we should.
Yeah.
Let's
talk about that Shining.
Let's get into it. And I'm gonna tell you right now. Yeah, I just want to make it clear we're not on a time limit here, but I almost feel like we don't even have enough time.
Yeah.
Talk about all the stuff that's about to go down.
So when I read a section for a Hole in a Wall, I get one of two feelings. I either get the feeling of like, ooh, this is going to be like, this was really good. And I'm excited to talk about how good this was. Or I get the, this is going to be a funny episode. But this definitely fell more to this was really good. Like, I genuinely enjoyed this whole section.
Right. I feel the exact same way. And I was just like, and we'll talk about this more at the end. It was especially hard for me to stop.
Yep.
It was a pretty brutal really hard.
Yeah. Okay, but jumping into this, we got chapter 18, the scrapbook. And you know what? There is a theme to these chapter names. It's either this is where they are or this is what they're doing. It's very simple.
I joked on it at first. It's really growing on me.
You know what? There's a cool cadence to it. Like in this, we get outside 217 and then inside 217 is the last chapter in our section. And like, he does that a lot. I'm actually really enjoy it. I'm picking on it a little bit because I'm desperately looking for something comedic. But the scrapbook starts with Jack down in the basement, checking on the boiler, and then he just starts going through the papers, and he eventually comes across this scrapbook. Yep. And it's the torrid history of the Overlook, which we've gotten like glimpses at. We get like the full-on changed hands, lots of like potential illegal stuff, mob connections. Have you ever heard the term key club outside this book?
I have not.
I haven't either, and I looked it up a little bit, and I very, very brief looks, but I couldn't find any references, which might just be a time thing. It might be a term that just never made it to the internet.
Yeah, maybe you didn't find the right scrapbook,
That's true. Yeah. I'm still 100% convinced Stephen King just made up the term night knocker from the Institute.
Maybe.
Like if you Google that term, you will only find results of people being like, where the fuck does this word come from? I saw it in the Institute and I don't think it's a real word.
I mean, but almost, I mean, he could have made it up. And that's part of the genius, I think, of writers is to subtly be able to insert something into the language that you're like, oh, okay, yeah, that's probably real. And then you're like, oh, I wonder what the origin is. And then you're like, oh, well, maybe the origin is Stephen King.
Yep. Just like, it's fine.
Right. All right, so this scrapbook, and this thing is incredibly detailed. I mean, that's what I got from it. I mean, Jack is sitting there. He is like reading newspaper clippings. I mean, he's seeing photos. I think there was even a personal sort of note in there as well.
Yeah, there was like a handwritten note on like there was some gangland style mob killings there. And someone had like handwritten under one of the articles, something like they cut off his balls or something like that. Something in that vein. And like there's a couple times in there where Jack like stops to think like, who the hell made this? Like, where'd this come from? But he won't stop drinking it in.
I mean, that's a very good metaphor too, because, and I think we're going to be talking about this a lot, because one of the very key things that happens over and over, I mean, it's happened before a lot, but it is constantly happening in this chapter, where he is constantly like wiping his mouth with the back of his hand, which is one of the key things he used to do all the time when, he was still drinking. Right.
Yeah, and several times he's like, "Oh God, I want to drink. This work would go much better with a drink." Like we haven't seen this in a couple chapters, but like right back on the I want to drink.
Yeah, and to me, when I was reading this has definitely been the most severe.
Yep.
Throughout this chapter, and this is why it's so interesting. This chapter almost reads like a history lesson. Like it really does get into the details of the Overlook, which was surprising to me when I was reading it. I was like, wow, this is incredibly detailed for something like this. Like it really got into it.
Like to the point, it's like I'm certain most of this is not going to come back up in an important way.
Yeah,
like there's like the grand masquerade ball and the unmasking. Oh, yeah.
But again, it's. I mean, you said it perfectly. He's drinking this in, essentially.
Yeah, and we're seeing like interspersed with this, like basically just exposition of the history of the hotel. We're getting his mental state, and he's obsessive immediately with this.
Right. Yeah, big time. And I think that, it like I said, it really is interesting, because to me, you see subtle clues before this chapter, but this is a huge character shift.
Yep.
I mean, this is the first chapter. I mean, we've seen clues before this, and I'm like, ooh, that's not good. But this chapter, I was like, this is a serious problem.
Yep. I'm gonna talk about this more in a couple chapters, but like this whole section, he is starting to drink again, but what he's drinking is the hotel. Like,
oh, exactly. Yeah,
that's what's, and this is the point at which that starts. Like, and him going through that scrapbook is him getting drunk again for the first time.
Yeah, he's been sipping it the whole time, right?
Right.
And yeah, this, like you said, this is the first time he's gotten drunk off of it. And I say this is the turning point too. I mean, you can feel it while you're reading the chapter, but a little bit of what we're going to be talking about here in the next few chapters, he never comes back down off of this.
No. Like this ends with him realizing he's completely lost track of time. And Wendy, there we go. Wendy comes down and like he recoils, hides the scrapbook, and it's the hidden bottle. Like he is absolutely acting like he just got caught drinking in the basement. There's a moment where like he steps back away from her as she steps forward because like he thinks she's like stepping in to smell his breath. And yeah, it's full on. This is his day drinking in the basement.
And another thing too, this nagged at me so much. When he hid the scrapbook, what nagged at me so much was that, did the hotel want him to hide the scrapbook? Because in reality, either the book was empty or it didn't actually exist.
Right.
And it nags me so much, because I feel like that level of, or that emotion of hiding it came from the hotel.
Mm-hmm.
And again, it's all fueled by his, history of alcoholism and things like that. But I just wonder, like, I really do
Right.
wonder if the book even existed.
Because when the scrapbook is brought up again, he brings it up to Ullman when he talks to him a little later, and Ullman doesn't know it existed, so there's no confirmation there.
Right, and to be fair, I mean that's easily explained too. I mean, it's like
Right.
it was like in a well, it was on
It
like the top of some boxes, but again, it's in the basement.
But Ullman doesn't in
Yes,
the basement. Yeah, I'm saying
yeah,
it's not evidence one way or the other. It doesn't help us.
exactly. It
So, I'm
right.
hoping this graphic comes up again later because no, I hadn't thought about that, but yeah, no, that is interesting.
Because
Ah,
again, we've seen, and again, this is going to come up too, where we've seen already in the book where you see basically, I guess, shimmers of the past, right? So you see things that are no longer there, right? So maybe a scrapbook did exist, but I really was like, I don't know if it's really there. I
yep.
have no idea.
Yeah.
And it having this huge effect on him, this alcoholic effect on him, I'm like, I don't know.
Might not be there, Bo.
Right.
No, I get you. Uh, this chapter was just good and really impressively good for a chapter that was essentially a lore dump. Like,
Oh,
it
yeah, big
didn't
time.
it's absolutely what was happening, but it did not feel that way. It was really well done.
Yeah, and like I said,
Man,
I
I gotta
mean,
stop saying nice things about Stephen King. What the hell's this podcast coming to?
I came in at a weird time,
I
right?
know. You know what? Next episode, let's go do like some random chapters from Salem's Lot to get the right energy going, and then we'll go back to The Shining.
Oh gosh.
Okay.
Don't, please don't make me do that again.
uh, anything more on this chapter? We would move on.
No, I think we're good because I think we're gonna reference this chapter while we're talking about the future chapters as well. Because
Okay.
again, this was such a pivotal chapter, I think.
Yeah.
So,
From here we jump
so
to 19, outside 217. And Danny's just like his dad. They're like, so this all is like Danny standing outside the door to 217 and like remembering his promise not to go near it and thinking about the pass key that's down in the like front desk that could open it. How that pass key is definitely not in his pocket. Oh, wait, it's in my pocket. I'm like, yo, this is the Wasp Nest chapter. Like, this is on the roof, but Danny's version.
yeah, right.
Like,
And it's always one of those weird things too, right? I can't remember exactly how many rooms were in the hotel. I don't remember. I mean,
I don't either.
they explain it all in the beginning, right? But it's a mundane detail. Like it's not that important. Let's just say there's 100 rooms. If they would have just not said anything,
Yeah.
like
Yeah. You don't tell it to a 5-year-old, hey, like, hey, there's like 100 rooms, but don't go to this one. Like,
yeah, right,
this kid is 5. Not to bring it
right,
back to that, but
yeah. This they actually bring up another story later on in this section about what is it the story of Bluebeard or whatever.
Bluebeard's Bride, yeah.
Right, and it's the same thing. It's like, hey, you have like free reign of my estate here as long as you don't go into this one room.
Yep. And Danny's like actively thinking about this story while staring at this door. Like, I mean, by the end of this chapter, he ends up walking away. And then freaking the fuck out about that fire hose. We get like,
I mean, to be fair, I feel like as crazy, it's just a fire hose, right? But if I'm in a hotel, it's isolated. The only people that I've seen is like my two family members, right? And I'm saying there, I already feel weird about this hose, and I have psychic powers already, and
and I'm haunted, you know.
and I'm haunted. And there's a point when the hose nozzle falls off.
That's fair.
I don't
You know
think you,
what?
I don't think you overreacted.
I apologize, Danny. I apologize for me besmirching your 5-year-old character. You're right. You're valid.
Like
Uh,
I'm putting the pieces together here, and I'm told never to go into 217 and the hose outside that I feel not great about with my psychic powers, it just randomly out of nowhere falls off to the ground.
Oh shit, that's foreshadowing. Okay, so that means we have to go into 217, right?
Yeah, right, exactly. But not till later.
Not till later.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're not ready yet.
Yeah. No.
So then we go on to this like long sort of scene where he's like frozen in terror, basically, which I probably would have been too.
Okay, I reluctantly agree. I would have been too under those circumstances. All right.
And then I think he eventually runs, right? He runs away, and then he's like he feels the hose like chasing him, and then he like turns back, and it looks like it never moved,
Yeah.
basically.
Yep.
But then it's like that sneaky suspicion. He's like, well, it could have gone back. Like,
And
it
you know
could have
what?
chased me.
That's actually fair, Danny. You right. I'm
I
not allowed to
mean,
say anything against him at this point.
I don't have me personally. Again, I don't have a ton. Like, I don't have like a depth of knowledge in magical fire hoses.
Okay, you're right.
Right?
Okay, don't hose shame me. It's like fucking high school gym class all over again.
Did magical fire hoses come up a lot? They did in my class.
I mean, you know, in a manner of speaking. It was a whole carry thing.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, this is I want to make fun of this chapter, but both these chapters are just really well written. Like, and the biggest thing I got from it is just Danny is exactly like Jack. Like, he is 100% picking up all of his dad's habits.
Mm-hmm. And I actually feel bad because I didn't really pick up on that too much while I was reading it. And now that you bring it up, I'm like, yeah.
He does that like slow admission to himself. He like, man, I could go get the key. And then I think the line is like, and then he put his hand up and the key was there because of course, like, because it always was, or of course it was. But it was like him being like, yeah, I already have the key. But he's still just
right.
the slow line to himself. It was just such an echoing of that whole on the roof chapter. And oof, it was good.
I almost feel embarrassed. I did not pick up on that. And I think I was just so absorbed into the scene that I really didn't even have just sort of the ability to sort of like take a step back and realize what was happening. So
I ended up reading this section twice. I did it once on an audiobook, and then I did it again just physically reading, and it really caught me on the second read through. So,
okay.
Yeah, I cheated.
I didn't know that we were doing the twice read. I only did the once read. So
I had a lot of driving, so I can't take notes when I'm listening while driving. So I'll just like go back and take notes in my second read through.
I think a lot of people probably appreciate that we don't take notes.
I think so.
At least
I think people truly appreciate that we don't edit either. And if you have an opinion other than that, you can send them to don't fucking at me.
Right.
We're ready to move on to the next chapter because this is definitely a doozy. Talking to Mr. Ullman. Oh,
Talking to Ullman, chapter 20. Wow. This is a chapter.
Yep.
So Jack, again, now completely obsessed. I mean, he cannot let it go.
He's gonna write a book.
You're right.
He's gonna write a book.
He's now at the library in what the town Sidewinder, I think.
Mm-hmm.
He's in the library. He's doing research.
He's going through old fucking microfiche.
Yeah, and like he's to the point where like he's doing this so hard, like he's getting like a migraine, you know, like he's just like continuously pushing himself. He is absolutely obsessed. And again, showing all those like I guess extreme signs of his drinking that really popped up like 2 chapters ago and like the chapter, they are all here and present and getting worse. And that's why I said like this is a huge turning point.
Wendy interrupts him, being like, "Hey, we're tired and want to go home," and he fucking snaps on her.
And she only got the 10% verbally of what he was actually thinking.
Stephen King has a habit of making characters so much worse just by giving their internal monologue. Like, I said this back in Carrie. If you watch the Carrie movie, because you can't hear her thoughts, you can look at it as she is a victimized girl who lashed out and was in fear. Yeah. If you read the book, there's a moment when Carrie's like, okay, I like the way you die. I like the way you die. Oh, this is fun. Everyone dies. Like, oh no, she's a fucking villain. She turned heel right then. But yeah, no.
Yeah, and I mean, this is always my complaint about movies. I know that's a whole tangent. Is that yes, the internal monologue is so important to so many books, and you lose that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's especially when talking about this scene, Jack snaps at her big time, but what he's actually thinking is way worse. I mean, he like cusses her out like big time. Like I can't remember exactly the words that he actually used internally, but
I think if we repeated those, I'd be like community struck on YouTube, and I don't even upload this to YouTube. They'd email me and be like, "Hey, I know that your podcast isn't on our platform, but we're gonna strike your other channel because you're associated."
Yeah, no, exactly.
It's just like tears her down. Like, oh. And she's just like, I'm gonna go hang out with our kid. Find me when you're done being a little bitch.
And I think this is also the first, and I could be wrong about this, but I think this is the first time in the book where Jack loses his temper big time, and he does not even really realize it.
Right.
Previously, he would lose his temper, and immediately it was like the fear.
He apologizes, but he immediately blames it on, I have a migraine. The lens was warped. I have a headache. Do you have any aspirin? And she recoils because he used to chew aspirin as his like hangover cure, and then cusses her out in his head because she doesn't have aspirin.
Oh, yeah. That was the thing. He wanted Excedrin.
Excedrin, that was it.
She had some other pain reliever, and he was basically like, worthless, blah 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 blah. She knows well this isn't going to do anything. This is all her fault. So, and again, even the sorry wasn't really even heartfelt anyway. Even if she had the Excedrin, it's always something else. It's never me. Yep. It's the migraine, right? But this is the first time he doesn't really acknowledge his anger at all.
Right.
Really. Like previously, he's like, "Oh my god, I lost my temper again." Like he's actually showing fear about it. But this, nope, just not even, doesn't even register.
Oh yeah. And then he goes and does the dumbest shit. Like, if you go into this having not just realized, dude, this dude's drunk. Like, he is drunk on the hotel. Nothing that happens next makes a goddamn piece of sense. Right.
If I didn't know the name of the chapter and you said, I'm going to give you 50 guesses, or maybe I'm feeling generous, so 100 on what Jack is going to do next, I'm not guessing what he's about to do.
You know what?
100 guesses.
Knowing the name of the chapter, talking to Mr. Allman, I wouldn't guess what the fuck he wanted to talk about. Because this dude calls Allman at work. Like, I'd like to speak to the manager. Allman, that officious little prick.
Yeah, right.
And he's like, he flips out on Allman about this scrapbook. Just being like, dragging the motel or the hotel through the mud, being like, this sordid history. I can't believe you didn't tell me this. And Allman completely reasonably is like, you're the fucking caretaker. Right. I didn't know you a fucking tour. And I gave you that 3 times. Yeah. Like, oh my God.
The entire premise of Jack's argument is ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. How dare you not tell me about the hotel's like criminal dark history before I took the job as the winter caretaker for 3 months. Like, what?
And like in the next chapter, he openly admits why he did it. Because he talks to Al, because Al eventually calls me like, "What the fuck are you doing?" Because he tells Ullman like, "I'm gonna write a book, and it's not gonna hold back, and it's gonna be the next modern American classic." And Ullman's like, "I'm gonna get you fired because you're an asshole, and you're gonna drag my hotel through the mud. Fuck you." And Jack very openly admits he's like, well, he like dug up my past during the interview and it wasn't fair. And I know he loves that hotel.
Which is so crazy, right? Like,
right, like your past was relevant. You were an alcoholic who got fired for an angry outburst at a child, and he's worried that the last caretaker who was an alcoholic killed his kids. Like,
and let's
get it.
Also take another step into this and say, I don't know if it's all that crazy to where a future employer is asking you questions about your previous job on an interview.
So, I mean, yeah, that's fair.
Right. And Jack is like, how dare you ask about my history? Like, what?
Oh.
And you didn't even tell me that the mob used to run this 30 years ago? How dare you, sir?
I'm gonna blend like this, talk about this chapter and like the beginning of the next chapter together. Because in the next chapter, it's back at the hotel, and Al calls Jack to be like, "What the fuck, dude? What are you doing?"
And here's the crazy thing. So, right, Al calls him, they're talking, and Jack is like excited. He's telling Al. Now, again, giving everybody some backstory here, the way that Al was able to get him this job is because Al is like on the board of directors for the hotel.
Yeah, and we find out at some point he's like one of the major shareholders.
Right, exactly. So he's kind of a big deal. The hotel for him is a huge investment. And Al calls him up. They have a brief exchange, and Jack is so excited and tells him about the book that he's going to write that basically is going to smear the entire reputation of this guy's hotel. And Al is like, yeah, why don't we take a few steps back there, buddy?
Please don't. I need this to make money.
Right. And Jack is super pissed. I even wrote this down because I could not believe it. Internally, again, internal monologue here is Jack is so pissed about this, and at some point he even says like what is it? Is it like let's pick apart Jack Torrance week?
Yeah.
Because he's like, pissed off about what Ullman said to him, what Al is saying to him. He's pissed off that how dare his like wife excuse her for like asking him what time they're going home because he's been in the library for hours. Like,
and like in this, he builds this mental image of Al. Like, literally, there's this moment where he's like, Al's on his high horse and is like his rich ass, and he gets to tell me what to write, and we get to pretend to be friends as long as I don't ever mention the collar around my neck. And
yeah, right.
Because his buddy doesn't want him to write a smear piece on a major portion of his income. And like, it kills me because this winds down. Basically, Al's like, Jack's like, "Are you firing me? I can't lose this job." And Al's like, "No, but I need you to apologize to Ullman." Like, or no, it was never call Ullman again. That was what it was, right?
Yeah, I think
never call him again. Like, if the fucking place blows up, call the caretaker. Like,
yeah, I mean, it was definitely that. And the big thing was like, hey man, you're not writing the book.
Yeah.
Like, period.
Yeah.
And also, they didn't say this in the book, but I'm adding this on myself. You should know better.
Right. Come on.
I
Like,
gave you this job as a favor, and now you're literally trying to ruin my investment. Like
yep.
that's so effed up on so many levels.
Yep.
And again, the crazy thing is Jack even mentions this. He mentions it like, oh, and now like I'm being so restricted. Like you even brought this up, the collar around my neck. Like Al's like he's such on his high horse. Like I could not believe it.
Yeah.
Like these 2 chapters were insanity.
And then the very end of this conversation, I think, was just super intense. I'm going to get a little personal here for a second, but this ends with Al, like Jack promises, and then Al very quickly is like, "So how have you been? Like, how you doing? You're my buddy. Let's talk. I don't want you to think I'm trying to restrict you. You know." And Jack just cuts off the conversation. Like, Wendy's calling me. Hey, I gotta go out. I'll talk to you later. And as someone who has symptoms of borderline personality disorder, I have had times when I have built someone's motivations up as an evil person in my head so much, and then I'll talk to them and I'll be like, yeah, account for your sins. Wait, why are you being nice to me? Nah, this is bullshit. We'll talk later. This doesn't confirm my narrative. I'm out. It's exactly what Jack's doing. Like, I was genuinely like, so how you been, buddy? And Jack's just, nah, fuck it. I'm out. You're the evil bad guy.
And again, this just goes back to these chapters are written really well.
Yep.
Like, period. Because Al's response to Jack and Ullman's response to Jack, I felt were spot on. I mean, spot on.
Yeah.
Because both of them are like just absolutely confused at like the audacity of Jack's sort of demeanor, I guess.
Especially because, frankly, if Jack's goal was to write this book, all he had to do was write the book. Like, neither of these calls ever needed to happen. Al's probably going to be pissed, but it's going to be once you don't have to deal with it. Like, this was just to rile up trouble.
And yeah, right, exactly. There's no point to either one of these calls. Well, I mean, Al called him, rightfully so, because Ullman is like freaking out calling him. And again, it's just the crazy thing, like ending off on that chapter where he just feels so restricted about the collar around my throat. And Al has gone out of his way so much. Like anyone would be so happy to have a friend like that.
Yep.
We're like, oh shit, this guy has bailed me out so many times for nothing. He's never asked for anything in return except for me to not write a book completely ruining the reputation of his investment. That's it.
Yep. Like, there's even a point when Jack, like, fairly viciously is like, Al, you're a drunkard too, and no one calls you out because you were born with a silver spoon. And Al's like, yeah, you're right, man. Sorry, it isn't fair. It sucks. That's why I'm trying to help you.
Yeah.
Al's just so gracious.
Yeah.
But yeah.
He literally he doesn't owe him anything. Al owes Jack nothing. And he still helps him, and Jack hates him for it.
Yep.
This is Jack, right?
Yep. Just jacking people around.
Right.
But we have a little bit more. So this chapter that we transitioned to is Night Thoughts. And we then jump to Wendy laying in bed thinking about her day. And her day is basically noticing that Jack is doing every single thing he does when he drinks except drink.
Right.
And we get a brief little so Jack kind of at the end of the phone call tells oh, it was Al. Everything's honky dory. It was just calling to check in. And Wendy, in her recalling of her day, turns to Danny and is like, hey, Danny, little psychic baby boy of mine, what was that phone call? Do you think Al was mad at Daddy? And Danny's like, oh yeah, no, here's the fucking tea, Mom.
Right.
So, and she goes through this whole thing and trying not to let Danny realize she's prying into information he shouldn't know.
Is this the first time, by the way, that Wendy has in the book sort of like even consciously admitted that he basically has powers. Because I know it's been like a weird back and forth thing, but this is a very direct, tell me what actually happened in the other room on a phone call.
Right. I
I
think
think.
it's the most direct thing we've seen.
Okay.
Though with how unreliable our other narrators have proven to be so far, I could have like and she could have figured this out fucking whiles ago. Like, hey,
Right.
is your dad been fucking around?
Yeah.
What do you think, little 2-year-old baby boy?
Right.
Coup once for yes. Uh and then we get a bit of Danny's night thoughts, and God, that kid's spooky.
I actually don't even remember what his was. I didn't take a note on it.
He was just thinking about when he learned about sanitariums and being taken away by the
Oh.
men's in the white coats. It's basically him reminiscing on like one of his friends from the old school's father who had a breakdown, and his terrifying terrified misunderstanding of sanatoriums and the men in the white coats.
Well,
Basically, we kind of get this motivation that he doesn't talk about this shit because he's afraid of being thrown to hospital for the rest of his life.
and again, I'm actually upset with myself that I didn't take a note on this. So I'm really glad that you brought it up because again, I can't believe we keep saying this, but this is again great writing because the thing that truly bothers me about a lot of literature that I read is a lot of times you get characters that are doing things and you're like, that doesn't make any sense. Like, why are they going to the extreme to hide this? Especially like a kid. Like, I'm not saying the kids don't do that, right?
Right.
But at 5, I again also have a 5-year-old in real life right now. And I mean, he's not psychic, or who knows, maybe he is and he's hiding it really well.
Mm.
um, but
Just
they
start
just,
casually asking about arguments on phones. We'll see
yeah,
where it
right.
goes.
See where it goes. Just be wary if I ever tell you that I'm gonna go oversee a hotel for the winter.
Go to a B&B up in the mountains.
Right.
Like,
They need a caretaker.
can we live vlog it
Yeah,
for
right.
content and views?
But again, this is just a good thing. Like Stephen King didn't have to put this in,
Right. But
but
it does. It explains why he's so secretive. And I think we have a short chapter after this that I think this was integral in. Because there's in our next chapter, there's a point at which Wendy very directly is like, Danny, is this shit bad? Should we leave?
I
And
mean,
Danny lies to her.
do you want to get like right into it?
Sure. I mean, this is kind of the very end of that, so we can
Right.
phase through because that's in the truck. It's just a couple pages. And
Yep, chapter 22 in the truck.
oh, you
I'm
got
not
notes
gonna
here, don't you?
no spoilers. I don't want to tell anybody where this is located,
Mm,
where the chapter takes place. But no, again, just continuing on with this conversation. Um, Wendy finally talks to Danny. Like, finally has this talk.
they're driving down the Sidewinder to get primer reader books for him.
Oh
It's
yeah,
just
because
the two of them.
yeah, it's just the two of them, and Jax is back at the hotel, which we're gonna get into as soon.
Yeah.
And yeah, they have this talk where Wendy finally asks Danny about his psychic powers, and she asks him about Tony, and she basically says like, "No, I believe in you.
Yep.
Like you can tell me. Like I believe in you." And I don't think that's a lie. I think that really, and Wendy even brings this up at some point, but at the doctor's office, when the doctor tells her that, oh yeah, Danny, he knows that you were thinking about your sister that passed away, and you were
Mhm.
sad about it in the waiting room. I think that was the final straw for her,
Yep.
which makes sense because how else would? There's no way a 5-year-old knows that, or even someone sitting right next to you, right? Like it happened years ago.
What am I sad about currently, Mark?
You're probably sad that we can't bash this book like we have like all the previous ones.
I mean, a little bit that, but mostly the death of local heartthrob, Tommy Ross. Uh, yeah, and during this, she very directly asked Danny, and she's like, I need you to be as honest as you can. Is your dad drinking?" And so very directly, like in the chapter before, she was dancing around getting information out of Danny. Now she's like, "Hey, use your magic. Let me know."
Right.
And Danny says no. And then we get the internal monologue of him holding back yet.
Yeah, and the other thing too, the sad thing is that it's one of those things, right, where Wendy she really doesn't know the right questions to ask,
Right.
right? And Danny's too young to really understand. I mean, again, he's still motivated by all the things that we just talked about, right? He's scared of the men in white coats.
And he's scared of divorce and his dad's suicide. Things he's raw felt in their minds.
Right, exactly. And we have this long conversation. I believe it's in this chapter, right, where she says, like, "Hey, should we go to my mother's house?" And Danny gives her a very, very real sort of analyzation of that entire situation. He's like, "No, that would be really bad because I know that your mom thinks that she can take care of me better than you can." And like, I mean, he goes really deep into this.
Yeah. He's like, your mom's got real big bitch energy and I can't cope and you can't cope.
Right.
Now it lays it all out for her.
Which she was not ready for.
Just straight hard pass.
So another crazy thing about this chapter, which I was reading it, I was so like, when I was reading this next part, I was like so excited. I wanted to call you immediately. I was like, this is gonna kill me until we record. Because I want to talk about this right now. Because I have brought up in our first section and in our second section, and now I'm bringing it up again, whether or not Tony is an extension of Danny or Tony is his own sort of being. And Wendy says the same thing.
Yep.
Exact same thing. I was like, internally, I was like throwing a party. I was like, yeah, I'm not the only one. I'm not the only one.
Yep. Yeah, and at least if a character in the book is asking the question, I feel like we're likely to get an answer.
Right. I was so excited. So excited. And it has taken me so many days to talk about this.
There was a quote I immediately sent you from the the call with Al. I'm gonna look back through our chat because that one got me. It was, "Are you sure self-pity is a look you can afford right now, Jack?" Oh, I just had to toss that line out. It was good. I want to use it. I need to get in an argument with someone named Jack.
There's so many good things. I mean, we're not even giving these few chapters really all the justice they deserve.
Yeah, there's no spook notes on this one. Just read this one.
Yeah, right.
Anything more on this? I think I've said everything I had to about that chapter.
Yeah, me too.
And then we get, I think that this is our first something's definitely fucked up with the hotel. Like undeniably so. Or at least undeniably fucked up with Jack at this point. Because it's in the playground. We get Jack trimming the hedge animals.
Mm-hmm.
And Jack is a little cuckoo during this.
He basically turns into a kid.
Yep.
Like not
like a real creepy kid who's like questioning whether or not he's being creepy.
Right. It's really, and first of all, I can't, the overall tone of this chapter is so weird.
It's like weird manic energy.
Yeah.
And like, I'm saying that as someone who experiences manic energy, it's weird manic energy. Like, to the point that this almost feels like a manic psychotic episode. Like, he starts out trimming the hedge animals. by the end of this, he's like sliding down the slide and thinking about how unsatisfying it is, and like knocking on the windows and creeping in the little playhouse. And then
Yeah,
the fucking hedge animals start
he gets on the
moving.
swings too. Like it's crazy. It's weird.
And he's just saying weird, disconnected stuff and like laughing weird. Oh,
Yeah, right. And like I said, the tone here is so strange. And this is we've gotten angry. Like the last few scenes with Jack has been like angry, 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 world against me. And suddenly you jump into this scene and he's like, oh, there's a slide there. I want to slide down the slide. And ooh, there's the swings, and I want to do the swing set. And you're like, whoa.
oh. And then like he looks back and he like can't figure out what's wrong with the hedge animals. And then he notices that the rabbit is like on all fours when it was standing up, and they start moving, and then he snaps out of it and they're back where they were. I really enjoy that immediately before this, the last thing we really see is Danny being like, no, we have to stay. We can't go to your mom's. Then we see this. And Jack is just not in a great place. And then we get a tiny chapter where the snow starts.
Well, the thing that's weird about the hedge animals is like I said, this whole chapter is very confusing to me because I've always sort of made this point that I believe that the hotel itself has basically specific intentions.
Right.
Right. And you could make the argument, or at least I think you could, that the whole hedge animal thing was to further his sort of breakdown.
Mm-hmm.
But the weird thing is like I don't think it was needed. And again, like I'm not exactly suggesting that the hotel is super rational either. Just this whole thing was really strange because the hotel hasn't really done anything major directly against Jack. If anything, it's tried to lure Jack in. And this is like the first time that like the complete opposite has happened to him.
Are you saying that the hedge animals were a manifestation of the Shining trying to scare him away?
I have no idea. That I've thought, yes,
I
thought
have decided that is the truth, and it is the hill I will die on.
Oh,
That is all I need. That is my theory. The
Look,
hedge
man,
animals, Shining. They're the
we have
good guys.
We have a lot of book left, is all I'm saying.
I will
And
die on this hill.
There's too many hedge animals for this not to come up again.
You know what? I'd probably stake my claim slightly early, but no way I'm going to take the 3 to 4 minutes it would take to edit that out.
Right.
That's where I am. I have made a blood oath.
Like I said, I read this chapter and like that's the thing that I was hung up on was this is the first time that the hotel has tried to scare Jack. And it just didn't make sense to me. And again, you can make the argument that well this is just the extra thing that was needed to push him over the edge.
No, I think you're completely right. It was The Shining. Yeah, no, this chapter, yeah, you're right. The tone was just so unsettling throughout. It was
Yeah, right.
I can't describe it.
Like yeah, neither can I, because you always have a certain tone with every character. And the tone, I mean, obviously Jack is Jack. And then even in the previous chapters, starting with the scrapbook, right? You see his overall demeanor and things change, but he's still Jack. But this chapter, you're like, what?
Yep.
What
he's
is going
doing
on?
weird rhyming things.
Oh, yes.
Which Danny does again. Danny does in like the next. Then the last chapter of this section, Danny does a little bit of that. There's a lot of mirroring between this and chapter 25, the Inside 217. Like in those in that rhyming and yeah. Yeah, from here we get like a very brief chapter that's just like, hey, the snow started. The snow started, y'all. Y'all ready to get fucked up here?
The chapter is literally called Snow.
Yeah,
It is
snow.
2 pages long, and
And
it
it's
describes
exactly what I said, repeated for 2 pages
yeah,
in that voice.
here's the
Y'all
snow.
ready to get fucked up here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, it kinda ends off where they're all relieved that the decision is no longer on them. And I know that we've sort of touched on this through several chapters, but this is just like the final recap to say, like, no, this was a thing that they've all been thinking about this whole time, was whether or not this was a good idea to stay. And now that decision's off the table.
I do like the last, line of this chapter. Was it inside its shell, the 3 of them went about their early evening routine, like microbes trapped in the intestine of a monster.
Yes.
What a fucking analogy. That's a good one.
Yeah.
And then this is the chapter that made it hell to stop where we stopped.
Yes.
Inside 217. I bet you cannot guess, dear listener, to this, our most foreshadowed of podcasts.
Right.
It's inside room 217. Danny goes in there.
Oh
Yeah.
man, where do we even start?
Um, Danny and Wendy tried to learn how to snowshoe. Wendy hates it.
Oh, how did we miss that?
Yeah, it's just like the beginning of this is just like it's a week and a half later. There we go. We got 2 weeks of snow. They're cut off at this point.
Yeah, I think the phones are out at this point. The only thing they have is like a radio.
CB radio.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was just trying to see if there's anything else that happened before then.
Yeah, I was giving you a second.
Oh yeah, we just get that brief interlude that Jack's been obsessing in the basement. And then it just is all the Danny in the bathrooms and the 217 stuff.
Okay, so he's in there. And I honestly don't really remember how long this chapter is, but internally, like mentally, it's long.
Yeah.
Because
I think
this
it's one of the
chapter
longer of this section.
Oh, is it? Because this chapter is nothing but tension.
Yep.
And you feel it every page, or at least I did.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, this one, I'm just looking on Audible real quick. This one was 17 minutes, and like the longest of this was 32. So it's like the third
Okay.
longest of these chapters. So,
Oh,
yeah.
okay. All right.
But yeah, no, the tension was, yeah.
I mean, he's looking around. He's looking around 217. It's just a room. He even says it. He's like, "Oh, you know what? Like this is crazy. This is ridiculous. Like it's just a room. No big deal." Last thing he checks is the bathroom. The curtain to the shower is, it's closed. So he opens it up, and lo and behold, there is basically a corpse of a woman laying in the bathtub, right? Like the bathtub is like full, and this dead corpse literally looks directly at Danny.
Yep.
And the awesome thing about this, about the way that it was presented, was again regular, regular, regular. It wasn't like, oh, and something was weird about the bathtub. No, it's just it was given to you so casually. It was like, hey, I'm like looking around the room. Everything is good. And then the last thing is the bathroom. So I'm like looking around the bathroom. And then I pull the curtain. Oh, and there's a dead lady. Like,
Yep.
it was so
It was like
I
a
had to, like
jump scare in text form.
right.
It's
I had
just
to like read back. I was like, wait a minute. What?
like a double take it. Was it what?
Yeah.
So Danny
Or
freaks,
rightfully
absolutely
so.
flips out a little bit, but he calms himself down because he keeps thinking about old Halloran and Halloran telling him they're just pictures. They can't
No
hurt
big
you.
deal.
And he calms down and finally, like, he's about to open his eyes knowing that she'll be gone and he'll just
Well, hold on though. Here's the thing.
right.
She moves
Right.
and she starts to come for him, and he runs to the door of the hotel room. to like run, and it's locked. Like he can't
Forgot
get
about
out.
that. Yep.
Right. And yeah, that's when he starts to like, okay, like he's panicking, rightfully so. I'd already be dead. I'm gonna just tell you that right now. Just immediate cardiac arrest. Like you're just gonna find me dead at the door. I'm sorry. And that's when he starts remembering what Dick Halloran said. Like, nothing can hurt you in here. And even in his mind, he was like, this door is not even locked.
Yep.
Like, this is just my mind or the hotel playing tricks on me. All I have to do is calm down, open the hotel room door, and walk out. That's all I got to do. And I'm good because nothing in here can hurt me. And then the hands of the lady close around his neck. Chapter ends.
Just turns him around to stare into her dead eyes, and chapter ends.
Right.
Boop. And
So that is
even if you turn the
completely-
page,
Oh, right.
all you see is part 4, Snowbound.
Yeah.
So that's the end of like a section. Oh God, this whole chunk was good.
It really was.
Like him, the good parallels that keep being drawn between Jack's chapters and Danny's. Oh, I love it.
And again, it's so weird. And I'm going to sound like a broken record here, but it's so strange to read this book and have read his previous books. Because this book is really good. And I know a lot of Stephen King fans are really going to get at me about this because I believe he wrote It before this as well. I'm still not a huge fan.
I don't know in writing order, publishing order. It was after this one. It's the next one after this.
Oh, really? Well,
But that's just publishing order, so I don't really know.
Yeah, it's tough to say. Like, right? I think The Long Walk was the first book he ever wrote, but the first book he published was Carrie. So,
and Carrie, I enjoyed. I have a lot of complaints, a lot more complaints about Carrie than this. Salem's Lot is utter trash. Don't at me. I don't fucking care. I will fight you in an Arby's parking lot. Salem's Lot. The movie's good. Maybe that's what you're remembering. But
yeah,
oh my God,
I tell everybody that. I'm like, dude, like if you're about to read that book, keep those expectations low. It'd be like if I took all night, if you're like really hungry and I took all night to boil a pot of water, it's like somehow I just did it like the slowest way possible. Like I'm gonna turn my stove to 1 and then I'm gonna wait for a little while. I literally take all night and then it's finally boiling and I just turn it off and I'm like, I wasn't even that hungry.
Yeah.
That was Salem's Lot.
Yeah.
At least to me.
No, I mean, I'm right there with you. Like, if I had not been reading it to make fun of it, I would not have finished that book.
This is like, it's one of those things where everyone.
Welcome to The Shining, episode 3, where we really get into our feelings on Salem's Lot.
Right. I think me and you needed some time to do some contrast work here. Like this book is so good, so we need to like talk about Salem's Lot as well to bring us back to center. You know? Okay,
so after The Shining, we'll do Salem's Lot again.
Good luck trying to make it through it the second time.
Oh yeah, no, I don't have the strength in me for that.
Yeah.
Any final thoughts on this? Getting back on the Shining topic.
Wow. Final thoughts. I mean, if you're
before we start doing Salem's Lot instead.
Again, just an awesome section. I mean, we've said it so many times. I mean, there's so much good writing here. The horror is really good. Like we didn't really talk about it in the hedge animal section because there was a lot to talk about too. That was a scary chapter.
Yeah, no, the way like Jack desperately trying to figure out, wait, what just changed? And then it clicking that the animals were different positioned and then well done.
And then like he's like, oh, they're only moving when I'm not looking at them. And then he finally realizes probably the most terrifying thing ever. There's no way I can look at all of them at the same time.
Yep.
And when he said that internally, I died. Because I said that would, again, talking about the 217 thing as well, I'd be like, that's too, I can't, I'm checking out right here.
Yeah, this whole section was just good. Just really enjoyable.
Yeah.
I'm excited for the rest of this. I hope that there's at least a small pocket that's really bad. It'll probably be near the end, if I had to guess. Well, because I want one episode where we can make fun of a lot of stuff.
Yeah, in Stephen King fashion, if the entire book is good, the ending has to be trash. It has to be, right?
I mean, in fairness, there are books where the entire book is pretty trash, and then the ending still somehow makes it worse. Yeah. But for the next section, we're going to be reading chapter 26 through 32. So it brings us like halfway-ish through our next part.
All right. Yeah, sounds good.
And I guess until next time, I've been slowly bubbling sense of rage and fury with my own incompetence and smallness in this tiny, tiny world. And we're reading the book. Someday we got to actually figure out an ending for this.
We do. And a beginning.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, nah. No, that's called branding. Hole in the Wall Book Club is a part of the Icynewyear Productions Network, and produced and edited by Anthony Sheets. The music in this episode is Supernatural Radio by Kevin MacLeod. There'll be a link to his license and website in the show notes. If you want to get a hold of us, tweet us at Icynewyear, or send an email to icynewyear@gmail.com. If you enjoyed this episode, please take a moment to tell a friend, or leave us a review on your podcatcher of choice. Word of mouth and 5-star reviews really help us get out in front of more people, and let us expand and do more things. More information on the show can be found on icynewyear.com. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time.